So, because we had so many questions about how we assess pelvic floor and how we know for sure that it's working, I thought we'd show you how I assess it and how I teach it using the real-time ultrasound. So if you could straighten your legs down for me, please. So the ultrasound probe's going to go just above the pubic bone, and then we image back through the bladder, picking up the pelvic floor as it sits underneath the bladder. So I'm just going to pull that down a little bit. Is that okay? Perfect. Cool. And then bend your knees again. So the reason that we bend the knees is to take the tension off the tummy muscles so we can get a better alignment. Then you need to be in a neutral spine, like we talked about in the last video, to get the best kind of activation. And then it's all about the gel and the probe. So this will be a little bit cold. Okay, so if you can see the screen, here's the bladder, that big oblong shaped blob, and just here at the base of the bladder, this white line is the pelvic floor as it sits inside the pelvis. So if I was now to ask Eva to draw her pelvic floor muscles upwards and inwards, you can see an elevation coming through that white line there. And then keeping that elevation, good, and relax. So we talked about as much as necessary and as little as possible. So throughout the day, we're looking for that endurance, slow twitch activation of the pelvic floor. So we want to think about drawing in a little bit and then leaving it there. Continuing to breathe. Good. Moving one leg, so lifting one leg off the table. Good. And back down again. And then the other leg. And back down again. And then relaxing the pelvic floor. So those of you that are watching the pelvic floor really closely on the screen are thinking, but hang on, it moved down, or it moved this way, or it moved that way. Your pelvic floor needs to move when you move. So it's not going to stay in one place while you're moving around, but you are maintaining a contraction on the pelvic floor as you move. So let's try that again. So drawing up and maintaining it, and then moving one leg. Great. And then back down, keeping the pelvic floor on, moving the other leg, and back down, and then relaxing the pelvic floor. And you can see at the end that Eva still has something to let go of, even though we can see her pelvic floor moving around while she moves her legs. So that's one of the quick, easy functional tests of the pelvic floor with the real-time ultrasound. The other really cool thing about the real-time ultrasound is that we can also have a look at the abdominal muscle activation at the same time by using those pelvic floor instructions. Because when you draw the pelvic floor muscles upwards and inwards, your deep abdominals, your transverse abdominus, also works with your pelvic floor. So they have a relationship where they work together, and we can see that just here by putting the probe up on Eva's stomach. So as we're looking at the screen, we've got 3 layers. So the external oblique is this first layer of muscle in between the 2 white lines. Internal oblique is the next layer in between the 2 white lines. And this is the deep layer, or the transversus abdominis, underneath that. So if Eva was now to draw her pelvic floor muscles inwards, we can see a contraction of that transversus muscle. It gets thicker and it slides across to the screen. And it does that without engaging the 2 obliques, the more superficial abdominal muscles. So Eva didn't have to think about her abs, they just came on automatically when she drew her pelvic floor up, which is what's going to keep her spine nice and stable. If she was going to lift a really big weight, so she's going to deadlift, she's going to squat, she's looking for a 1RM or a 2RM or a 3RM, she's going to need a hell of a lot more than just a pelvic floor and a transversus contraction. So that's where you draw up on the pelvic floor to get the inside muscles going, squeeze the glutes, and then brace with the superficial abdominals. So that's what you need to know about midline stabilization for today.